Over the last several weeks, we've brought to you interviews with a UFO whistleblower, a director who spoke with dozens of officials about possible secret government programs. And tonight, Brett Baer takes a closer look at some of those claims and speaks with a UAP researcher about what they are calling a government cover-up.
Thanks, Aisha. Lawmakers from both sides of the aisle and other government officials believe they should know more about unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAPs. Tonight we look at reports on some of the secret government programs that are being alleged.
This is so secret. There have been very few people in our entire government that have been allowed or provided access to it.
A new documentary featuring former and current officials from across the federal government is attempting to connect the dots on secret knowledge of UAPs.
This is the biggest discovery in human history.
CIA officials, DIA officials, naval intelligence officials, the list goes on and on.
I served as the 4th Director of National Intelligence.
Director of Aviation Security in the National Security Council.
One-star admiral after 32 years of service.
Former Rear Admiral Tim Gallaudet served as the Navy's chief oceanographer and meteorologist, and as acting administrator of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Why'd you take part in that? And of the voices in there, are you convinced that these are credible folks that are really coming forward for the first time?
All those folks are credible, Brett. They're all colleagues of mine. I've worked with them for years. This is going to change the arc of human history. The fact that we're not alone in the universe and that higher order non-human intelligences are visiting us and interacting with us, whose intent we really are unsure of still. That's just mind-blowing.
Not everyone is convinced by the film. The New York Times writes the claims are unprovable, and Variety calls it inconclusive. For us to be comfortable doing stories about it, we have to believe that these documents and these experts that we're talking to are telling us the right thing. How do you think the country, the world, will react when, if this happens, it's disclosed?
You have a slow process of information coming out of government, mostly from Congress, from intelligence community officials who've retired. And what we're seeing is that despite the amount of coverage on this, there isn't a lot of pickup on it in media, and people aren't really absorbing the significance of it.
Anthropologist Peter Skafish is co-founder and director of research at the Solve Foundation, a group that helps fund research into UAPs. Skafish interviews and conducts field work with witnesses.
I've had a lot of conversations with retired intelligence community people who have more or less verified this stuff to me directly.
How many people know this?
This has been an 8-decade cover-up. The total list has to amount to 100 or more.
Presidents have access to all classified information, but it's unlikely the commander-in-chief reviews everything on any specific subject. Officials estimate there are billions of classified documents in existence, and as many as 50 million classified records are added every year.
Various presidents have been told, but many have not been told.
Retired Colonel Karl Nell was the Army director for supporting the UAP task force. Why would a president not be told?
There was a feeling that elected officials might not be sophisticated or intellectual enough to deal with that kind of complexity.
The Solve Foundation alleges in a report the Eisenhower administration issued a directive giving UFO decision-making the same status as nuclear war powers.
A man whom I trust from the Air Force has said that it was, as far as he knew, it was completely inaccurate to believe that they came from any outside or planet or otherwise.
The presidents, who have asked for briefings on UAPs, say they have not learned of any suspected cover-ups.
So far as I know, they're not hiding information.
It's never been my thing, I have to be honest. I have never been a believer.
Nell believes presidents could be uninformed because he says private companies oversee the programs.
Eisenhower administration may have allowed this to slip out of elected official control into an unelected body that would manage these programs.
You understand the skeptics, right? The people who say this is complete BS. This can't be true. You understand where they're coming from, that there's nothing to show besides the, these videos and the testimony. But for them, they haven't seen it in person.
Sure.
To confirm it.
100%, Brett. Yeah, we want that smoking gun. We want the evidence, the data. And I mean, the most I have knowledge of, though, that was convincing to me is I saw the classified videos that have since been declassified, taken by Navy F-18 aircraft.
In 2015, Gallaudet was commanding personnel during a naval exercise off the East Coast when he received an email warning of near mid-air collisions. Attached was a video of the suspected threat. Gallaudet says the next day the email disappeared from his account. The Pentagon would eventually declassify the video more than 5 years later.
The Navy is sitting on a trove of UAP video data that they're not releasing.
That video and others prompted lawmakers to call for more transparency. Congress has requested reports from the Defense Department on sightings, and in each document, investigators found no links to extraterrestrial sources.
We take all incursions into our operating spaces seriously.
The All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office is the government's current group looking into UAPs. Its findings have been consistent with past Pentagon investigations.
To date, Arrow has found no verifiable evidence for claims that the U.S. government or private companies have access to or have been reverse engineering extraterrestrial technology.
Some former officials claim the U.S. government does have evidence.
We learned that the U.S. government was involved in a long-running secret war with other nations to collect and reverse engineer vehicles not made by humans.
Somewhere in this country, there are craft that are being held that have landed here or crashed here, and there are biologics, non-human bodies.
That's correct.
Someplace in this country?
Someplace.
In this program?
Correct.
The AARO has acknowledged an effort to create a UAP recovery program called Kona Blue, but says it was later canceled because it lacked merit, that no extraterrestrial craft or non-human entities were ever collected.
Knowing what you know, is it conceivable there could be a government program that you don't know about?
I think it's conceivable that there are government programs that we don't know about.
Democratic Arizona Senator Mark Kelly logged more than 5,000 flying hours during his time in the Navy and spent more than 50 days in outer space as a shuttle pilot.
Has anything happened in space or at the International Space Station that might signal that there's alien life out there?
So I have made 4 trips to the space station, all about 2 weeks in length, over a decade. And I have no personal experience with this. I have 54 days in space, which might sound like a lot. My twin brother, 520 days in space. People often look at him and say, hey, you must have seen something in all that time you've spent in space. And the answer is the same as the answer for me. Haven't seen anything that indicates anything visiting, our planet.
Obviously, there's a lot of interest in these stories. Some people call it crazy, but these reports are happening. We'll continue to follow the UAP stories as more information comes to light, and we'll see how the Trump administration responds to all of these reports. We'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Brett.
What's up, humans, and welcome to a new Psicoactivo. I reported on the David Grush interview with Bret Baier, and Timothy Gallaudet also reported on LinkedIn that he was part of a 4 or 5 person interview with Bret Baier as well on Fox News.
The best way I can say, Sean, is it's not from here. I spent 20 years researching this topic, working this topic directly on behalf of the American people, and I did everything I could and did confirm that some of the things that they're seeing are obviously, completely terrestrial, whatever word you want to use there, from potential adversary nations, from defense contractors and companies here, commercial sources. However, there were still cases that we could not attribute to any nation on Earth, and that says a lot.
Do you both believe that they're hostile, Dan? Hostile forces, entities, if you will.
I think that's to be determined. We do not know.
So we don't know for sure.
We don't know what their intentions are. Look, I interviewed 34 military government intelligence officials, Sean. They couldn't tell us any better than you could what the intention of non-human intelligent life is, right? All we know is that this is a real situation. It exists. There are UAP penetrating our most sensitive airspace. It is a problem. And even if you can't wrap your head around the idea of it being non-human intelligent life, what are the choices you're left with? An adversarial nation like China or Russia has leapfrogged us technologically and is invading our most, classified and protected airspace. That's not great either. So, no matter how you have to look at it to get your head wrapped around it, it's got to become a serious conversation, a serious national conversation, a serious global conversation. And, the film reveals there has been a deeply hidden crash retrieval and reverse engineering program in the United States. China has one, Russia has one. There is, in fact, a high-stakes secret Cold War race. Rubio talks about this race on camera, on the record, in the film, and makes it clear that if we don't get our act together as a nation, we're going to wake up one day. To quote him, he literally says, we will wake up one day and China will beat us. And we won't know how they got there or when they got there, but we will be screwed.
I'll be watching myself.
Something that I hadn't heard was Colonel Karl Nell actually agreeing and stating that there is a crash recovery program and that they did find bodies and that they're somewhere here in the US. I do have to commend Mr. Brett Baier and the people at Fox News that put this together, because it was like a really comprehensive report. There's even a picture where they apparently show parts of the famous MJ-12 documents. And this was already confirmed by people who have read the documents that it is parts of those documents. So officially, this is the first mainstream media outlet that includes an MJ-12 document, which is a first ever. So there's that. In the interview, there was Timothy Gallaudet, there was Colonel Karl Nell, there was Senator Mark Kelly, who is still on the same boat that he never saw anything. He was for 50 plus years in orbit. His brother, who's a twin, was in orbit for 500 plus days. And both of them report that they didn't see anything. That's strange because a lot of astronauts that were in orbit or were to the moon, they eventually come out and say that they did see something. So I don't know. But for me, the most important part of this amazing report from Brett Baier was this little clip that is just about 20 seconds from Colonel Karl Nell. Are you guys ready?
In this country, there are craft that are being held that have landed here or crashed here, and there are biologics, non-human bodies.
That's correct.
Someplace in this country?
Someplace.
In this program?
Correct.
That's a first. I had never heard Colonel Karl Nell saying that is correct and agreeing to the line of questioning from Brett. And this clearly, if you guys hadn't noticed, this clearly is prepared. I know that Karl Nell also spoke about the precedents and the history of the UFO topic with precedents. Another very interesting part of this was clipped by UAP James.
Presidents have access to all classified information, but it's unlikely the commander-in-chief reviews everything on any specific subject. Officials estimate there are billions of classified documents in existence, and as many as 50 million classified records are added every year.
Various presidents have been told, but many have not been told.
Retired Colonel Karl Nell was the Army director for supporting the UAP task force. Why would a president not be told?
There was a feeling that elected officials might not be sophisticated or intellectual enough to deal with that kind of complexity.
So something changed now, it seems, because President Donald Trump is not regarded as very brilliant by many. And that's just the reality of it. So what's changed? What's the rush? Because there is a rush. Do you guys notice? And by the way, I paused here so you guys can see what I mean when it comes to MJ-12. They did use MJ-12. It's right there, right next to the sheet right there. So what does this mean? The fact that Karl Nell is now being a little bit more open about this, given the release of the documentary, it just feels like everything is just timed and controlled. And we need to get to the bottom of why this is happening. We still don't know. Only people that are involved in this know. And the fact that they're not being forthcoming about it, really, even after the documentary released, that lends itself for a lot of speculation and a lot of debunking and denialism that still persists to this day. If they were more forthcoming and more transparent about what is actually going on, things would be very different. And just so you remember, this was Karl Nell during one of those New Paradigm Institute presentations where he spoke about the technology, he spoke about non-human intelligence and all that. And he was very clear. He even mentioned the Miguel Alcubierre warp drive. So here it is.
Non-human intelligence exists. Non-human intelligence has been interacting with humanity on this planet. This interaction is ongoing and it's not new. And there is zero doubt. But you already knew that. So how do we go about convincing other people that this is the case? Particularly people that aren't necessarily privy to all the information that some of us may otherwise be. And so there's three principal lines of effort, three principal sources of data. There's essentially the first principles argument, which basically says, counter to common belief, that life is common in the universe. How do we know life should be common in the universe? There's 20 billion sun-like stars in the universe. The sun is a population 1 star. There are planets like this, there's stars like the sun that are 5 billion years older than the sun. That's plenty of time for other civilizations to evolve on these other planets. There is recent scholarship that says that life evolved on Earth in the Hadean era. The Hadean era was before the crust even cooled. There's recent scholarship that says that microbes have been found in terrestrial rock that have dated to 2 billion years ago, essentially in stasis. So life evolved here very quickly. There are many, many planets like the sun, and there are many, many planets that are much older than the sun. People that would argue that life is uncommon have to justify that proposition more than anyone would have to justify the fact that life evolves very quickly. The second point is faster than light travel. Everybody says faster than light travel is not possible. This is false. Miguel Alcubierre, a postgraduate student at the University of Mexico in 1994, solved Einstein's equations for an effective faster than light mechanism. NASA has investigated this. Everyone accepts his solution as valid. His solution requires negative energy. In 1960, quantum physics demonstrated or predicted the reality of negative energy. In the 90s, the Casimir effect was demonstrated in the laboratory. The Casimir effect demonstrates negative energy. The expansion of the universe, which is caused by dark energy, is negative energy. So we have a solution to Einstein's equations that allow effective faster than light travel. We've got the existence of negative energy proven. This isn't an engineering solution. This isn't a means where we can go and do this, but theoretically it's possible. And this is not argued by modern scholarship. So from a first principles, life is more than likely common, and we know that Einstein's equations support effective faster than light travel. That's the first principles argument. The second is the testimonial. Perhaps there are people out there that may know more than some of us might know, including people that have been in the intelligence community, such as myself. So we can look at several presidents, Barack Obama, President Trump. They both said UAP are real. We can look at, as was mentioned earlier, Chris Mellon, Dave Grush, Lou Elizondo have said non-human intelligence is real. We can look at Lord of the Fleet, Lord Hill Norton, a chief of the defense staff in the United Kingdom in past years, have said UFOs are real. We can look at the first Earl Mountbatten of Burma in the United Kingdom again, that have said UFOs are real. We can look at the chief of the Canadian Defense Ministry, Paul Hellyer, who have said non-human intelligence is real. We can look at Haim Eshed, who is the Israelis' father of their space program, who has said non-human intelligence is real. All these people and more would be in a position to know. Then we can look at the evidence, the data. You've seen the videos, the FLOR video, the gimbal, the Go Fast. A lot of people probably don't know Gordon Cooper, one of America's 7 Mercury astronauts, chased UFOs over West Germany in 1951. He testified to that fact before the United Nations in 1978, analogous to the David Fravor Tic Tac incident. We can look at the UFO incursions over the Northern Tier ballistic missile early warning sites in the 70s, and the document supported and testimony supported readiness status change of our ICBMs in the 60s at Malmstrom Air Force Base, where many missiles were taken offline by a UFO. The analogous thing happened in the Soviet Union contemporaneously. In their case, the missiles were brought online. There's an agreement between the United States and, at the time, the Soviet Union, intending to reduce the threat of nuclear war, that talks about each party notifying the other if UFOs are impinging on their warfighting systems, because this was recognized as a fact. There's documentary evidence, the Twining memo from 1947. General Nathan Twining, future Chief of Staff of the U.S. Air Force, wrote a memorandum that said the UFOs are most likely extraterrestrial. There's official Australian documents declassified on the National Archives of Australia from 1971 from their defense attaché that made a formal assessment of the United States' interest in UFOs, the reality of that, and the fact that the U.S. was investigating anti-gravity programs in concert with looking into UFOs, a conclusion that would make no sense unless the reality of this topic was demonstrated. So some people say, well, if this is real, why don't they fly over the White House or something? Well, in 1952, UFOs flew over Washington, D.C. over 2 weekends. There were radar visual sightings, there were air-to-air intercepts, and it created the largest press conference since World War II up to that time. People say, well, why don't they just land during the middle of the day? Well, that happened in 1994 at the Ariel School in Rua, Zimbabwe, where UFOs presented themselves with beings and occupants on the ground, witnessed by numerous children. The exact same incident happened in 1966 in Westall, Australia. The people that witnessed those events are still alive, and they continue to state the assertion of that being a factual occurrence. So these things taken together, along with much other evidence, suggest that this is absolutely true. And I'm speaking to you today to tell you that there is zero doubt this is absolutely true. I know this personally. So the way to solve this problem is to motivate the grassroots. Political activism is the solution to restoring proper oversight, developing a process for responsible disclosure, and advancing society through the efforts of that process.
But there are many things that Karl Nell is very gung-ho about. He wants for this to happen in a very specific way. He keeps modifying that disclosure chart all the time to different times, depending on what happens during the year, right? So what do you guys think about this one?